Hello guys, my name is Diego Pacheco and today we're gonna continue talk about estimates. So on the first video I was saying that very often folks get estimates wrong, right? Because they do several things wrong, like they have a manager or engineer doing the estimate who is not the person or the team who's gonna do the actual job, or they simply do not count on the principles of the uncertain cone in the beginning that you have lots of variation, or even completely uh, ignore variation, which it could means you have a new technology, a new business domain, a new team, etc. And all these things are hard to predict. It's hard to predict when you're gonna have unknown, right? And you're gonna have a bottleneck. So today, to continue talk about estimates, right, there's one thing you can do that can help you a lot is using the Moscow framework. So the Moscow framework says that instead of having one shot, you should have multiple shots. And actually, I think that goes before Moscow, right? If you look like the Steve McConnell book, right, the estimates the smithifying the black art, right? He was saying like, if you're trying to get a moonshot, probably gonna miss it, right? But if instead of trying to do multiple moonshots, right, you actually have more chances to succeed. And that's the thing, right? You want to increase your bets to have success, right? So how you do that? Instead of one estimate, you do three. So basically, you do one estimate that's very likely that you're gonna succeed, which is called must or must to have. Then you go to something that's likely that you're gonna have it. That's called should, and then you have something that you could done, but maybe that's no like a stretch goal that might not ever happen. But that's the thing, right? So basically, you can have three goals, and that really will increase your predictability and will help you to deal with it if you simply doesn't achieve the goal, right? Because that's the thing about estimates. In the end of the day, they're not reliable at all, right? Some people say that they are guesstimates, right? So you really cannot rely on something unreliable, but that's what people do because we are so used to it, right? And we need it. So then, in the end of the day, estimates like a psychological safety belt, right? You want to do it because psychologically you want to be feeling safe, right? But it's not reliable at all. But we do it, right? So let's try to be as much reasonable as we can, right? So Moscow is a good idea to work. Another thing, right, that also Steve talks on his book is about count and judge, right? If you're gonna estimate something, you need to count, right? So how many UIs we're gonna do? How many tables are there? Are we talking about AWS work? How much provisioning work do we need to do? Do we need to write how many Terraform scripts or how many Jenkins jobs? So it's always a good idea to count and to judge, right? And basic on the count, you say, okay, I need to deliver 10 React UIs, right? Okay, so how many fields do I have in that UIs? How complicated they are? How many tables or how many services I would need to have there in order to that UI to work, right? So in order to help your estimate to land and you to uncover complexity and unknowns, right, you need to count. As you count, as you try to narrow down, okay, let me try to to draw a prototype or to think at some point idea, or if you just write down, right, okay, I'm gonna try to do this. So this is the login UI. First you type your user, then you type your password, or there is a button here. You can do social login through Google or Facebook. If you write down these things, you easily gonna see, say, okay, so that's too big. Maybe I need like 3 stories, right? Because that doesn't fit in 1 day story. That's 3 days. So really trying to write down things, count and judge. That's a very good tip, right? To get estimates. I wouldn't say right, but more reasonable. Okay. Another thing that's really crucial about task splitting, right? Most of developers nowadays they don't do task splitting, right? And that's something that came from Scrum since day one, right? And even if you do Kanban, you might say, oh, okay, I don't need to do task splitting. Yeah, I would say you don't need it, but task splitting is a good exercise to realize a couple of things. So first, you realize how big is the things that you are working. Second, you can see what are the underlying assumptions and what are the things that you are missing. What are maybe the things that can go wrong? What are dependencies you have, right? So task splitting gonna help you a lot. And often, if you can do it on a planning, great. Otherwise, when you're gonna start working something, first thing you should do is task splitting. Because if you cannot split something, you have no idea how to split it, that's a very good smell that something is really wrong, right? And maybe you know you're not ready to do that, and maybe you need to turn that story in a more like a exploratory story, or maybe you need to do a proper POC in order to learn it. But in the end of the day, if you can't break the story, right, that's a smell. So, you know, task splitting is always a good idea to do, right? Just write down what are the things that you think you need to do, right, and talk with other folks, and then you can see, you know, what's going on, and you can improve and can help you a lot for our estimates. Another thing, which is a Extreme Programming XP principle, is called simple design. One thing that helps a lot with estimates is not complicate things. As humans, we want to complicate. As engineers, we love complicated things. We don't like to build simple things. We like to build complicated things. We like complexity, right? That's why it's sexy and appealing for us. But you know, we need to find and fight our internal guts, right? And say, no, let's not complicate. Let's try to do simple things and stick to the simple. And that's quite hard, right? Because you know, it's easy to get excited about complexity and build something complicated that nobody needs. So really, one thing you should strike is simple design, and you should really thinking people are complicated things. They are never doing as easy or you know as simple as could be. And one thing that helps a lot on simple design is think about waves, right? So let's say that we're gonna do 3 or 4 or 10 releases, right? So let's not try to boil the ocean with one shot. So let's see what's the simplest thing I can do now, then I move to my next move, and so on. And that helps to reduce anxiety and to get a simple design. So instead of thinking of one shot, thinking about waves, all right? In the ocean, like you have waves in groups of 3. So you always have 3 waves. You never have just one wave, all right? So thinking about simple design, try to break things in waves, let's say 3, 9, 10, whatever, and never think in one shot, and try to think incrementally, right? That do one thing, then do another, etc. Metrics is something that helps a lot, right? If you know how many stories you are done on the last week. You know, in Scrum they have something called yesterday weather. In Kanban we have similar metrics. You know, that always help you to predict your current throughput based on the past, right? And you know, the issue with that is folks try to think that is linear, right? So if yesterday I deliver 10, today they're gonna deliver 10. If last week was 10, this week will be 10. If last month was 10, this week will be 10. And that's the thing. It is not linear. It's not like a plane. You get a cruise altitude and you're always gonna keep that linear speed. It's not linear, right? Because of the role of variation, right? I'm not saying it's not good to have goals and try to ship as much things as you can, but keep in mind things are not linear. Even if you think it's linear, it doesn't guarantee that you're gonna have linear performance. Another thing that's really important on estimates is about team layout. All right, you really need to measure and pay attention to your architecture and team layout. Why? Because if your architect is a monolith, you're probably gonna have lots of merges and lots of dependencies, which your managers did not estimate that in your plan, all right? So you should try to lay out your teams and your architecture in a way that they can be parallel, right? And they can work well. There's an interesting book about that, talking about team topologies, right? That talks a lot about how it's important communications and team structures and architecture and all the same thing, right? And all go down to the Conway's law, right? And it makes all the sense. So basically, your architecture could affect your estimates, right? If you have a poor architecture that's lots of branches, lots of future branches, lots of Git flow. Oh boy, if you need to do Git flow, you are in trouble. But anyway, if you need to work with branches, go look GitHub flow, right? Much better, much simple. But going back to the estimates, right? So the thing is like you want to have an architecture that allow you to work in parallel with isolation, right? If you can reduce the coordination, then it will be easier to do estimates, because that's another trick of the mastermind variation, right? Often our estimates doesn't count how much coordination we want to do between you know microservices or different work streams, and that really will affect us. So mind the team layout and try to minimize that, try to arrange the teams in the way that you have less bottlenecks and less things to depend on. One thing that works a lot, and I think it helps really and is really interesting, is the GitHub module, right? GitHub has the inner sourcing module, which says, if one thing has a component and another thing has another component, you could do A, right? So you go there, you fight with the APM, you try to, squeeze space on the sprint and get they do the feature for you. Or option B, which is the inner source module that GitHub does, is you just go there, change the code, and do a PR, right? So the team that owns that code will do the code review, but then like the bandwidth they need to do is much smaller because it's the code review, instead of allocating space there and doing the feature, and then everybody has more ownership about everything, and that helps to reduce dependency. But if you don't think about inner sourcing and try to doing estimates, that's probably a bad idea, right? So probably you want to get the team dynamics first and see mechanisms like microservices architecture, like inner sourcing, and then worry about your estimates. And finally, we talk about forecast, right? This is the thing about forecast. If you get totally task-based waterfall, good luck. It's really hard to get it right. I would say it's basically impossible, right? Because you have so much variation, so much learning you're gonna have every day that that does not retrofit to the system. So how can you get that better? Well, basically what you do, you try to work by quarters, right? In If you do work OKRs, that work very well with OKRs. So you work by quarters, and instead of have task goals, you have basically impact or outcome goals, right? So let's say I want to introduce a new better login system by allowing the users to log in with like social login. I'm not saying I need to get Google login done tomorrow with React, right? And that give me space. And what you do, you plan by quarters. So say, okay, in 3 months I should have the social login, because that will increase my, attractivity for other users, and then that will make my revenue to grow up. So I have a better impact, right? And that would be really great for OKRs. And to deliver, if I spend 1 day or 3 days, as long as in the end of the day I deliver that in 3 months, I will be safe. So one thing that helps a lot is work by quarters, and that's what Silicon Valley does, right? If you're trying to micromanage things in hour-based, time-based, second-based, you are really in a big problem, right? And really good luck for you, all right? So that's it for today's, guys. I hope you like it. See you next time. Bye.